Hi, hello, vanakkam, namaskar, and welcome to season 2 of my podcast series, The People I Meet. My name is Shruti Vijay Kumar Vasant. I'm a radio jockey from Chennai, and on today's episode, I am going to be introducing to you a superwoman, okay? And I think this is a word that aptly describes this freakishly talented human being, someone I've had the good fortune of knowing the past couple of years. Actually, I know her through her husband, and our first interaction, I think a couple of years ago, was at a common friend's wedding, and I still remember being in awe of the human being that she is, and the lovely mother that she is today. So many different facets to her personality, so many different things. One day she's out being a sailor, one day she is being a doctor, which is her actual, full-time profession. She is one of India's one and only certified doctors who is a medical clown also. Everything she does with a lot of love, a lot of commitment, and a lot of passion. And one of the most, people with a voice, one of the most talented human beings that I know. I'm very, very proud to introduce to you, or rather welcome to this podcast, because she doesn't need any introduction. If you're from Chennai, you know who Dr. Rohini Rao is. Hi, Ro. Welcome to my podcast.
I'm actually really speechless. Thank you so much for that. Those lovely words you said. It really, really means a lot. Thank you.
Every word of it. We've had this conversation even the last couple of times. You've been at my studio and we've talked about a lot of different things, including KK. I've always been in awe of how you do all of these amazing things. But let's go back to the beginning, okay? Because this is something that I truly love asking my guests. Because I think when you look back on your journey, right, obviously it's been filled with a lot of beautiful moments, but it's not been an easy journey, especially the sort of, things that you've had to juggle to get to where you are today. It's been one hell of a roller coaster ride, quite literally for you as well, with the waves and everything. So tell me how that sort of started for you. The sailing, I know it happened. I know that you had your, very important, crucial exam and the national sailing meet on the same day. I read about how you handled that whole situation. So take us a little through that process. What was going on in your mind during that time?
So if you go right from the beginning, it's all thanks to my mom. She was the one who, introduced me to sailing, because she was the only one in my family who knew what sailing was.
Right.
So I started sailing at the age of 11 competitively. That's when I went for a summer camp and I learned how to sail. And imagine being in in your own boat, independent of anyone else. Before you even get a license to drive, you get to sail your own boat. I think that was what really excited me about the whole fact that I could just go out on a boat by myself at the age of 11. And fast forward to, a lot of national championships. I had to compete against the men because there are hardly any women sailors who compete, who are, there are very few civilians, let alone, women. So I had to compete against the Army and the Navy men at all of the national championships. And finally, about 2 to 3 months before my board exams, my 12th board exams, my teammate and I won India's first gold medal, at the Asian Sailing Championship. And that was when my entire, international career started. So when I got into medicine, that was the first thing everyone asked me. Oh, so now you got into medicine, are you going to stop sailing? And I just couldn't understand that whole logic, right? Sailing is what got me here. And I just started getting the feel of, what it was like to be in an international event and winning it. A 5-year medical degree turned into almost 8 years for me. Actually 8.5 if you count my internship after that. And, so it was crazy. I was in a government medical college. I was on the sports quota. There was nobody at that point representing India in sport, in an international level sport, and doing a professional degree like medicine. Right. So I didn't have any precedent. Nobody could tell me, what to do, because nobody knew what I could do. Right. And so that story that you were referring to was actually during my first year of medicine. I had taken part in almost 7 championships that year. Wow. And it came to my final, the final exam of my first year, and my acting dean, who was the anatomy professor, basically told me, hey, listen, get your parents. I need to speak to them because I had to decide whether to write the final exam or go for the world championship.
Right.
And I was just like, oh God, what is he going to tell me? And so finally, bring my parents along. And he looked at me and said, he looked at my parents, you have to let your daughter go for the world championship because the sports person's life is very short. And it's an honor to represent your country. And he started talking about how he was a boxer in his youth and he really wished he could have, taken it further. And I think my parents almost fell off the chair, but hearing that, a fellow doctor was telling me to,
Yeah.
And it was the best thing ever, Shruti. I think you just need one person to believe in you, because after that, he just said, okay, you know what, go for it. And all that changed was I became an additional batch, so I had to write my exam 6 months later, and every time I missed an exam, I had to wait until 6 months later to write the exam. Right. So, nobody is going to ask you after you graduate, how old were you when you graduated, So, I think it's a very internal thing that you worry about, but nobody else really cares.
Right. No, and that's very, very true, right? And I specifically liked what you said about you sometimes need that one person to sort of give you that push and to believe in you. And very often, that one person who believes in us, it could be a teacher, it could be a guide, it could be a mentor, or more often than not, it could be ourselves. Right. And I see that in you a lot. I see when I speak to you, out of the conversations that we've had. And you've always said, if you ask, you'll at least know what the answer is going to be. If you're not going to ask, you're still going to be thinking, what if? So Rohini has had a lot of those moments in her life, right? Where you've been very vocal about what you want, what you think is the right thing. But you've also had those conversations where you've sort of meant to understand what the other person is coming from or where or what they want to say. So how does Rohini navigate through a day?
Wow. Okay. Today is a very different day, but I'd probably say, talk about a typical day when I was working prior to being a mom, maybe that, and then I can probably relate it to now.
Yeah.
So when I was working and when I joined work, and I think what you're referring to in terms of asking, so I think because I'd done so many multiple things, with my medicine, with my sport, I was a facilitator in the design thinking, programs that took me to different countries like Kenya,
yes.
Nepal, Singapore. So, I basically am in a place where I want to be able to take those opportunities that come my way. And a lot of people think that it's easy to take the opportunities, but actually taking them is actually the most difficult part, because you have to make certain sacrifices. You have to compromise on certain things just to be able to take those opportunities that present themselves. And I'm, touch wood, really happy and grateful that I was able to, make those tough decisions and do those and take those opportunities, when somebody else would have probably been like, no, but it's going to spoil your career, or, how you're going to be away from home for so long. What about your family? So there were a lot of, or you won't get that much money, because yes, if you're not working in your job, you're not going to get paid. So there were certain things that I guess I had to be okay with, and what kind of redefine what success or what that meant to me. But I remember having this conversation with my executive director of the hospital that I work at, Kaveri Hospital, with Dr. Aravindan. He, was almost like you were talking about, like a mentor of sorts, or just a well-wisher, just to kind of, just find out how I'm doing, what I'm up to. So I remember in the beginning, he had called me in just to find out, what is your plan? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Right. And I swear to God, I looked at him and I didn't know what to say, and I think a lot of people have this answer where they have to say something. And I really looked at him and I said, Doc, I really have no answer for you, And he's like, I just like, I can tell you what I'm doing now. I can tell you what my plans are, for the next couple of months, or if I'm going for a conference, but I really don't know what it's going to be 5 years from now.
Right.
And I think he looked at me very worried, because he was just like, because you have to think about your future, you have to figure out all of these things. And anyway, so then I walk out, I do all my other things. The only thing I'd asked him was, Doctor, please let me give me the chance that if I get any of these opportunities that come my way, please let me take them. Even if it means, sacrificing on, my pay or, even if I even went to the extent of saying if my position is still not available in the hospital, I don't mind, if you give me a notice period, I don't mind looking for something else. But he just looked at me and said, no, don't worry, we are with you, and I will support you that way. And I was really taken aback that he would stand up for me, with the HR, to almost be like, she's hardly in the hospital, she's hardly, here. What are you doing? Why is she still on roll?
Right.
But he would stand up for me because there were definite advantages in the sense that I was representing the hospital at different conferences, at different events I was going for. But that was not the only reason he supported me. And I remember a few years later, he spoke to me and he just looked at me and said, you know what, Rohini, I'm actually very proud of you. I know that given a chance, if I had those, chances and opportunities, I wish I would have done what you were doing right now. Right. And I think that was just something that, it truly changed everything because I started seeing him travel more. I started, it was amazing. So I don't know if I had any play in it or had anything to do with it, but, he was taking time off more, spending more time with family, traveling, going for different events versus just staying in the hospital and, doing his work here. And I think that's what was really amazing. You can look up to your seniors, you can look up to people who are really successful in their field, but it's amazing when they look back and turn to you and say, you know what, you have inspired me, or you are doing something that I wish I could. And I think that was something completely that, took me by surprise, being, some really accomplished doctors in their field. So it was something that I really, I'm really, I don't know what the word is, but I'm really proud of, I guess.
No, I think somewhere, we are very proud of you when we look at that journey. To be very, very honest, I think I've had this conversation with KK off the record where we've spoken about, how you both as a couple, right, have sort of been like, we talk about this hashtag relationship goals, and now especially after the sort of love that he's been receiving, right? You guys are all over social media now in terms of the fact that everybody is picking on those little things to see what he's doing. But even something that he has always told me was, he always looks up to you for the sort of courage and the determination that you have and the will, to keep going at it, that persistence, right? That is something that it really, really makes someone else feel motivated. So we all look up to you and we're like, how does Rohini do this? Like how there are 24 hours in a day for everybody, but how does Rohini Rao manage to do all of this? So that again brings me to my question, because, you've done all of this. Like, you've been a medical clown. You're one of the first doctors ever in India to be able to do that. You're a sailor. You are a wonderful mother who shares her pregnancy in such a candid and such an honest way, because not a lot of people talk about it, right? Everybody talks about what a bliss motherhood is, but you've been very vocal about these are the things that you should sort of understand, things that people sort of shy away from. So was that a conscious decision that you took? Because today a lot of people look up to you for that as well, right? Apart from being a doctor, that relatability level, that is also something that's very special. So did you think about it, Rohini, that you were going to be so candid about your pregnancy journey?
So to tell you the truth, when we found out that we were pregnant, and I'm going to mention we because I'm telling you it is the husband and wife who, are pregnant. I didn't go through this alone. I can tell you that, KK went through quite a bit as well.
Right.
So when we did find out we were pregnant, I was really happy. Even though it was probably not the planned one, but we had decided that, okay, this was something that we wanted to do. But what changed my mind was when I had my first appointment with my fellow colleague, and she, even though she knew that I was an athlete and I was who I was, I'm a doctor and an athlete, and the kind of workouts I did, she really looked at me and said, oh, so now you should stop working out. You shouldn't, do any of this stuff that you usually do. And I was really taken aback because here I've seen, let's say, for example, Serena Williams or athletes who've done so much during their pregnancy. I've seen like weightlifters, I've seen CrossFitters. I'm not even that crazy, and here I wasn't even asking to do that crazy, workout. But this was something I was really shocked. So if they could say something like that to me, imagine what they were saying to regular women who were pregnant, right? So then I thought, okay, let me find out from someone else. And that someone else also said, like, maybe you can just stick to walking, stretches, yoga. And, and when I said, okay, what about swimming? She's like, yeah, maybe you can just, float on your back and just do a couple of kicks here and there. I'm just going like, this does not sound right at all. I don't want to go to a point where I have to lie about what I'm, doing in terms of workouts to my own doctor. I didn't feel like I was at that, point of time in my life. So that's when I started looking for someone who can at least be on the same level, because I knew what I was going to do was right. It was not something that I was thinking, that I was going to do that was too crazy or anything. So I finally found someone who had done her, had worked in the UK. So she followed the UK guidelines, and there it's very, very clear. You can stick to about 150 minutes a week of, workouts, and you can do the same intensity or similar to what you were doing prior to pregnancy. And I was like, you know what, I can deal with this. I'm not going to do anything crazier than that anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's how this whole thing happened. And then I wanted to make sure that I was going to have a natural birth. Now, this is something completely against probably what any medical doctor would do, because what can go wrong.
Right.
I have been in situations where I have gone to the blood bank and got 20 to 30 bags of blood because a pregnant woman was delivering and had postpartum bleeding. Like, I have been in those situations, so it's not like I don't know how bad it can get. And I've worked in the government hospital and I've seen it in private hospitals as well.
Right.
But for me, I knew that was not the kind of experience I wanted. And this actually came about 4 years ago, actually now much more than that, when I came across the Birth Village Cochin. And it was a Facebook page where I seen a friend who had given birth there, and it was a water birth. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. This is something that I really wanted to do. And that really started my whole journey of, because we have to go through these Lamaze classes where the husband and wife have to go through these, the father and mother have to go through these classes. And I thought, okay, being a doctor, I'd probably know most of it anyway. Boy, was I wrong. It's amazing how much we don't know in terms of just natural birth and normal pregnancy. We know all the complications, what to do, what to look for, what are the signs. So I have nothing against doctors. We need doctors for all of those issues. But what about just normal, natural birth that can, that your grandparents or great grandparents had at home, and they were fine. So I think that is where the midwifery model and the medical model, they really need to know that midwives, I think, are specialists in natural birth, and it's a completely different ballgame when it comes to that versus being a doctor and taking care of all the complicated births, and all the births that need help.
Right.
And so to answer your question, I didn't know so much being a doctor that I felt like I'm sure that everyone else knew even less of what I knew.
Right.
So I was very clear that, I wanted to document it. I wanted to, share as much as I could. Probably also before I forgot, because I do forget a lot of things, maybe in the mommy brain or whatever is real. And as a person, I don't really remember a lot of these details. And so that's why I just wanted to write it all down and, share as much as I could. And I guess it, like you said, it was relatable, because I didn't realize that not many people are that candid. Not many people do talk about the bad stuff as well. But I didn't filter anything, because I just wanted to talk about what was real and what really happened.
I mean, it really does. When I use the word relatable, I mean it in the most honest way possible, because, like you said, people shy away from sort of addressing certain topics because they feel like, especially in today's social media world, it's very difficult to be diplomatic and also, put your point across without offending anybody, because it's very easy today to sit behind a keyboard and just type whatever it is that you feel like it, because nobody can sort of say anything, right? So definitely that is very important, and you've always been very real, very candid and filter free when it comes to what you've had to say. So how has that sort of helped you deal with career choices? Because a lot of times, we get, especially as women, we are often told this: as a woman, you can't have it all, right? This is something that I'm sure you've heard in different phases, and I'm sure you've reacted in your own inimitable style to that statement. So how do you sort of view that today, Rohini?
So I just wanted to add a couple of things earlier. So what was really nice was because I'm a doctor, there are certain things I guess I know because I have that experience, that personal experience. And what was also very nice was there were fellow doctors who actually wrote to me saying, you know what you're saying is right. So at least there was some sort of validation. I was like, okay, at least I'm not offending anybody. And like you likely said, I guess I had a way of writing it that didn't offend anybody. So I guess I was lucky that way. I think when it comes to career choices, I think it all, it depended on how you were brought up. And for me, I was really lucky that I, could see my mom. And, the reason why was because my mom actually studied marine microbiology in the UK. And when she came down to India, she became a copywriter in an advertising agency. So from Calcutta, then she got transferred to Chennai. And when she was in Chennai, she decided to start the little theatre because my brother and I were 4 and 5, and she found that there was nothing happening for children in the city. And, so she became an entrepreneur, so to speak. But she didn't want it only for the richest kids. She wanted to actually do something for the poor, children as well. So she started, doing spoken English classes and creative classes for kids in the corporation school, in the Chetpet Corporation School. And then she wanted to go a step further. So she took, 2 boys and 2 girls, gave them scholarships from 9th standard all the way till college. And we, she's seen almost 100 kids in that scholarship program. So, and this was just one part of it. Then she, did model coordinating. She did, she's an author. She, you name it, she's done all of those things. Right, so I grew up thinking that was normal, that was what life was. And I think when you see that at home, I that's why I didn't understand it when people ask me, oh, how are you doing all of these things? Where do you have time? I had a living example at home, so it never struck me as something novel or something out of the box or something, very different. So, luckily I was never my mom and my grandmom have always wanted me to be a doctor, but I'm glad that they never really forced it down my throat or never said, oh, we want you have to do it. And in fact, I remember getting into medicine, telling my mom, hey, listen, what if I don't like it or enjoy it? Will you be okay if I quit? And she said, you know what, give it about 3 to 6 months. And if you don't like it and if you're absolutely, not able to do it, then, go for it. We'll support you. And I think that's what we need, right? We need that sort of free will, so to speak, to kind of say, you know what, I'm going to try this. And if I don't like it, I hope that you'd be, on my side when I want to choose something else. Having said that, after, finishing, 3 years of medicine and stuff, I almost quit medicine 3 times. And not many people know that, but I basically had my mom, almost twist me by the ear and take me back. But that's the kind of push I needed because I was kind of psyching myself out. Because I used to see all my seniors, study like crazy with their books 24/7. And I'd be like, I'm doing nothing like that. I'm doing quarter or even less of what kind of study they were doing.
Right.
And so I think I was just more scared of failing or scared of not being able to do it. And I think, I just needed that little push hey, listen, you can do it. Don't give up. You're almost there. And I'm really glad I did it. Touch wood, I never failed a single exam, even though I took a lot more longer to finish, than my peers. But I had an amazing journey. It was difficult because, for your final exam, you need to remember all the things you learned from your first year. And my first year was almost 7-8 years, earlier. So, man, it really tested my memory powers and my knowledge to the max. So, it was difficult for sure.
I'm not even second guessing that. I'm going to take your word for it because being a doctor itself, the very fact that you have to continuously keep upgrading your knowledge, right? That is something to me, like right from when I was in 10th grade, I faint at the sight of blood. I'm like a very weak person when it comes to that. So I knew that medicine was not for me, and I have huge respect for anybody who's decided to, go the medicine route and actually get like an MBBS degree. Every single time I look at a doctor or have a conversation with them, my respect is like, right up there, because it's not easy, the things that you guys do. Okay, Rohini, so now that we've had this conversation about motherhood, we've spoken about, your sailing, your career choices, how vocal you are about, thinking that this is normal. Like, I grew up in a household where things were going and working 24/7, so this is normalcy to me. What is the sort of stereotype that you sort of want to see vanish from society today? Because I think you will be the right person to sort of ask this question to, because we're always surrounded by so many cons, so many questions, so many, oh, why are you doing this? You have this label, right? There are so many different labels, so many different boxes that we choose or use to put people into. So what is it that you think we should be sort of changing, or if this didn't exist anymore, I'd be happy? What would Rohini say?
It's actually a really interesting question, because there are a couple of things. I'd probably just mention a couple, but go into detail about one thing that I'm really passionate about. So one of the things is, I don't have time to do some of the things that I want to do. And I think that's something that you hear so often, especially when it comes to, working out, your health, your passions, things that actually make you who you are, and I feel like you can't prioritize that so low on your list that you say that you don't have time for it. Trust me, if you want to do something that badly, you will find time and you will make time for it. And so that is one of the things that, I really wanted to say. The other is, yes, I mean, there are, things that people say that, oh yeah, you're a woman, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I feel like I don't want to bash men, because that's the truth is there are enough stereotypes for men as well. So I just feel like there are different people, and different people are on different, sides of that spectrum. So everyone is going through different prejudices, different, things that people are, talking to them, against them. And I think it's whether you're man or woman, you're fighting a lot of these biases and a lot of these stereotypes. But the one thing that I really, really want to talk about here is the fact that a lot of people think that the only way to be successful, or the only route, is to specialize. And that's something that I think really haunted me, in my youth, because I used to envy people who knew exactly what they wanted from the get-go. They knew they wanted to become a neurosurgeon in something, or, a micro specialization in blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, how do you know that you want to do this, right? And so I've gone through my entire life trying to keep all my options open, because that's how I wanted my life to be. So for example, when you had to choose your group in school, I chose physics, chemistry, biology, maths, computer science, because that was at least one way I could make sure everything was still open for me.
Right.
And now that I'm in medicine, I'm still choosing, general medicine. I wish I could have chosen something that gives me surgery also, because I really love that also,
Right.
But unfortunately, you can't, you have to choose at least something that is a little, broad in that sense. So I just done a fair bit of research into why, we feel like specialization means success, or to be successful or to have some purpose in life, you have to specialize or choose exactly what you want to do and stick to it. And it's actually come from, the industrial revolution. It's come from the Victorian, way of thinking, the Italian way of thinking. It's basically putting us in different fields. Just take for example, our universities, right? We have our different departments and they're very set. It's very rare that you have any collaborations. Probably is happening now, but at that time, like earlier, it was if you choose one field, if you choose one department, that's the route you take, So it's almost like they were priming us for, this sort of specialization sort of thing. But it's amazing. I'm not comparing myself to anybody, but it was a lot of lovely examples that I found in terms of, multi-potentialities or polymaths, where you have like Leonardo da Vinci, who's like an architect, engineer. He's an inventor, and a whole bunch of things, and he excelled in a lot of it. Then you have these multi-potentialities who, they do well in two or more things. So you have, like, for example, James Cameron, like, who again invented, the technology needed for, all the films that he was choosing to do, and cinematographer, director, you name it. And so it just brings to the point that there are certain individuals who might be good at more than one or two things, and you should be given the chance to explore that possibility. And I also feel like human beings technically aren't really meant to be specialists. We should be able to, change the tire of our car. We should be able to, cook our own food, take care of a baby, and so, like, there was a very nice quote that I found that specialization is for insects. It was like a really lovely quote that I read, and I was like, this is perfect,
Yeah.
And, it makes even more sense now, because in the future where you don't know what your job scenario is going to be like, I feel like you can learn so many things from different, fields that you choose and apply it to whatever you're doing currently. And I think that's exactly what I think I'm doing. And I feel like that's what's helped me navigate through all the different careers that I've chosen. I feel like I'm taking different things from everything I've learned and applying it to whatever I need to do at this point. So, I just want it to be normal and not really looked at, if you're not specializing in something, then there's something wrong with you. So
I think you hit the nail on the head with this particular, stereotype, because I think, obviously I don't do as many things as you do, but something that I also get questioned a lot, or rather, people are very curious about is, so you're a jack of all these trades, but a master of none. Because that is like the easiest thing for someone to say, right? Like, so you're doing all of these things, but you're not like 100%. No, you don't know that I'm not 100% at one or two of the things that I do. Right, that's a very nice way of putting it. And I wish, like you said, a lot more people normalized this, because this is a word that we love using right now. Everybody likes to talk about how let's normalize this, let's normalize that. It's become the social media trend of the year to normalize things. And I think in a way we are talking a lot more about things that need to be put out there. And, people really need to understand where everybody is coming from. And it's a big bad world, yeah. Everybody's got a space in it. It doesn't have to be so competitive.
And unless you talk about it, I guess that's the first step, right? And I think that's what is really beautiful about, social media and all of that, is that at least we're talking about it. At least we're having a conversation about things, to at least get it to some sort of a normalcy or some sort of a, conversation that people can have. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's the first step. And I think we're all sort of getting there in our own ways, in our own little, in ways that work well for us. I think that's very, very important. Which brings me to my next question, because we were talking about success, right? See, success is subjective. This is something that I think has been a standard in most of my conversations with all of my guests, because like you said, each person views success differently, right? So today to Rohini, what does success mean?
It's amazing that I'm glad that you asked me what I'm defining success today, because it's very different from what I probably would have answered a couple of years ago, right. Which would have been yes, being able to take those opportunities, being able to travel, being not really the money, but just having the ability to take on a lot of those opportunities. But today, for me, success means that I am able to spend that time with my family. And build that, build that relationship, because I think that's something that really goes very low on your priority list when it comes to, thinking of your career, thinking of what you need to do next. I guess I was quite selfish about that because I needed to. I felt like I wanted to be there, and I think everyone goes through those phases in life. But I'm so glad that today, my little girl has taught me so much, and including my husband, including my parents. So a lot of people ask, what really changed or what really happened to you during the pandemic, and I think this is what happened. This is something where the priorities kind of shifted drastically, and I'm so glad it did. because I would have never had this time otherwise.
Right.
You know, and now that I'm a mom, like even saying that out loud sometimes is unreal.
Right.
You know, but it really teaches you so much. Shruti. It teaches you so much in the sense that you have someone who's right now, at least, you know, so dependent on you for every single thing. You're looking at that person like everything that person's doing is, you know, phenomenal.
Right.
And, you know, and also just the fact that, you know, I have a co-parent in my husband, and I think it's so beautiful to be able to see that side, you know, when you're in a couple relationship. It's nice to see another facade. It's nice to see another aspect or dimension to this whole you know, thing that you're going through. And I'm really just very respectful and very grateful,
right.
You know, I think that's the word, just to be able to spend this time and this you know, these moments with each other and with my parents, with my, you know, seeing how they are with my daughter. It's so precious. And absolutely, I think that is really what I define success to be right now, that I'm able to have that sort of relationship so strong at this point.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's something that, you know, we all sort of crave for, right? At the end of the day, we chase a lot of different ideas. We have a lot of crazy things that are going on in our mind. We have a lot of targets and milestones that we set for ourselves. It could be something as small as, okay, today I'm going to get in my 15 minutes of workout, come what may. Or, you know, I'm going to cook myself a really fancy meal. Or I'm just going to sit with a book and do nothing all day, but I'm both going to be content about the choice I make. That also is success to a lot of different people, right? And I think today, Rohini, I've always enjoyed talking to you. I think I've been very vocal about that right from the time we met each other. I've enjoyed your company, and we've had a lot of interesting conversations even in the past where we've spoken about a wide variety of things. And I look up to you for the sort of role model that you are. And I'm so glad that you have a daughter and that your daughter has a role model like you to look up to. You inspire so many young people out there, so many people, you know, who always wonder and question, what if I'm not able to do it? You know, okay. And then they look at you and they say, okay, Rohini is doing it, so I can, you know, I push myself. And that is something that is very, very precious. Thank you so much for being you. Thank you so much for your candidness, your honesty, and, you know, just putting all of these wonderful conversations out there and normalizing pregnancy the way you have, because a lot of people definitely look up to you for that. As always, you were raw, real, and unfiltered on my show. So thank you so much for that. And any last things that you would like to share, your pearls of Rohini wisdom to my listeners?
Pearls of wisdom. Okay, wow. I mean, now you're making me feel old, but I am. I guess I am.
You're wise soul. Let's put it like
that. But seriously, you're very, very sweet with your, you know, your compliments, and I think that's also very rare. But I think actually I'll take off on that. I feel like a lot more women need to encourage other women, because, you know, it's not very often that happens. And I've seen that. In fact, there are a lot of times where women can put each other down, and it's really sad, because I don't know why it is, because maybe they feel like they want to be the only person on that level, or whether they felt like I had it really difficult going up there, so I'm going to make sure it's as difficult for everybody else. So I feel like if you're a woman out there, you know, and you really want to get somewhere or feel happy, feel good about yourself and do something nice, I think just share a kind word. I think it really, you have no idea what that can do for another person, because, you know, having been at the receiving end and also, you know, having been the person to, you know, appreciate somebody else, I can tell you that it really goes a long way. So I think even if you're not a woman, even if you're a guy, you just compliment the girl or compliment the guy, I'm sure they're going to feel really happy. So yeah, just share the love. I think it's really important too, and it'll make you feel a lot better afterwards as well.
Absolutely. The world needs as much of the love and positivity it can get right now, because that's the sort of year that it has been. And the pandemic, like Rohini said, you know, has taught us a lot of different things. It's put a lot of different things into perspective for us. And we've been able to appreciate family, we've been able to appreciate the little things in life. And we always used to say, I don't have time. But I think this year sort of made us sit back and say, hey, I've given you all the time now. Now you might better well put all of your strength into it and do whatever it is that your heart is telling you to do, and put your heart and soul into getting the results that you sort of wanted. Go at your own pace. I think that is also something that's been a very beautiful takeaway from my conversation with Rohini today. So once again, thank you so much, my rock star, for being on my podcast series, The People I Meet. It's been an absolute pleasure knowing you, and I know that we're going to have many more such wonderful conversations in the years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was an honor. Thank you.
Right, so with that, we come to the end of this episode of my podcast series, The People I Meet. This is season 2. My name is Shruti Vijay Kumar Vasant. My guest today was the fabulously talented Dr. Rohini Rao. You can look her up on social media as Dr. Rohini Rao. And I will catch you with yet another interesting episode, with yet another interesting personality. Lots more wonderful stories to share on the next episode. Until then, this is me, Shruti Vijay Kumar Vasant, radio jockey from Chennai, signing off. Take good care of yourself and stay safe. Thank you for tuning in.